Sheriff John Brixton squinted his eyes as the black SUV with tinted windows pulled up in front of his modest ranch-style home. He had just finished his morning coffee and was about to head out for his daily jog around the neighborhood when the vehicle came to a stop, its engine idling ominously. Brixton watched cautiously as four individuals in crisp navy blue polo shirts and khaki pants emerged from the SUV. They wore badges pinned to their shirts and carried thick binders in their hands. As they approached his front door with purpose, he instinctively reached for the sidearm holstered at his hip. "Good morning, Sheriff Brixton," the leader of the group, a balding man with thick-rimmed glasses, announced in an authoritative tone. "We're from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, and we need you to come with us to discuss a serious violation of our community bylaws." Brixton furrowed his brow, taken aback by their bold assertion of authority. "I'm sorry, but I don't recognize the Willow Creek HOA's jurisdiction over me or my property. Unless you have a warrant signed by a judge, I'm not going anywhere with you." The man in glasses pressed on, undeterred. "I'm afraid you don't have a choice in the matter, Sheriff. As executive officers of the HOA, we are empowered to enforce our regulations, and you are in clear violation. Now please come with us quietly, or we'll be forced to place you under arrest." Brixton couldn't believe what he was hearing. These people had the audacity to threaten the county's top law enforcement officer with arrest? He took a step forward, squaring his shoulders and fixing the group with a stern gaze. "I think there's been a misunderstanding here. I am the sheriff of this county, and I don't take kindly to anyone impersonating law enforcement officers or attempting to unlawfully detain me. Now I'm going to ask you one more time, who are you people, and what gives you the right to come onto my property and make these demands?" The fake HOA officers exchanged uneasy glances, sensing that their bluff was about to be called. The leader, however, refused to back down. "We are the duly elected representatives of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, and we have the authority to enforce our community's rules and regulations. Your refusal to comply is a serious offense, Sheriff Brixton. I'm giving you one last chance to come with us before we're forced to take action." Brixton let out a slow, exasperated sigh. These people were clearly delusional, and their persistence was starting to grate on his nerves. He took another step forward, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. "I'm going to say this once, and only once. Get off my property and don't ever come back pretending to be law enforcement officers again. If you persist in this foolishness, I'll have no choice but to place you all under arrest for impersonation and trespassing. Do I make myself clear?" The leader of the group faltered, his bravado suddenly evaporating. He opened and closed his mouth a few times, unsure of how to respond. The other three members of his team shifted nervously, their eyes darting between Brixton and their leader. Sensing their wavering resolve, Brixton decided to drive the point home. He slowly drew his sidearm, holding it at his side but making it clear that he was prepared to use it if necessary. "I'll give you one last chance to leave before I call for backup. Time's running out, so I suggest you make your decision quickly." The four fake HOA officers stood frozen, the weight of their predicament finally sinking in. Brixton's unwavering stance and the sight of his weapon had effectively shattered their illusion of authority. Realizing they had bitten off more than they could chew, they slowly turned and scurried back to the black SUV, their tails between their legs. Brixton watched as the vehicle peeled out of his driveway, kicking up a cloud of dust. He shook his head in disbelief, holstering his weapon and muttering under his breath, "Big mistake, fellas, big mistake." As the black SUV sped away, Sheriff John Brixton couldn't help but feel a sense of unease wash over him. The audacity of those fake HOA officers had caught him off guard, and he couldn't shake the unsettling realization that this was likely just the beginning of a much larger problem. Brixton quickly stepped back inside his home and reached for the phone, dialing the station. "This is Sheriff Brixton. I need backup and a patrol car sent to my address immediately. We got a situation with some impersonators claiming to be from the Willow Creek HOA." After relaying the details to the dispatcher, Brixton paced back and forth, his mind racing. Who were these people, and what were they up to? He couldn't shake the feeling that their brazen attempt to intimidate and arrest him was just the tip of the iceberg. Within minutes, the familiar wail of sirens approached, and two of Brixton's deputies pulled into the driveway. The seasoned sheriff quickly briefed them on what had just transpired, emphasizing the need to track down the black SUV and its occupants. "These aren't just pranksters, folks. They were armed with fake uniforms and badges, and they tried to arrest me on my own property. I want an APB out on that vehicle, and I want those imposters brought in for questioning. This goes deeper than we know." The deputies, taken aback by the gravity of the situation, sprang into action. One radioed in the details to dispatch, while the other began canvassing the neighborhood, hoping to catch sight of the fleeing SUV. Brixton, meanwhile, stepped back onto his porch, scanning the quiet streets with a keen eye. Something didn't feel right. If these fake HOA officers were bold enough to confront him directly, there was a good chance they had been terrorizing the rest of the Willow Creek community for some time. As the minutes ticked by, Brixton's concern only grew. The deputies had yet to locate the SUV, and he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this was just the calm before the storm. Whatever these imposters were up to, he was determined to get to the bottom of it and make them pay for their reckless abuse of power. Brixton clenched his fists, his jaw set with determination. "All right, you sons of bitches," he muttered under his breath. "Let's see what other tricks you've got up your sleeves." Sheriff John Brixton paced back and forth on his front porch, his mind racing with possibilities as he waited for his deputies to return. The brazen confrontation with the fake HOA officers had left him unsettled, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much deeper problem. After several tense minutes, the sound of sirens pierced the quiet neighborhood once again. Brixton turned to see the patrol car pull up, his two deputies quickly exiting the vehicle. "Any luck tracking down that SUV?" he asked, his voice laced with urgency. The younger deputy, a recent academy graduate named Amy Wilkins, shook her head regretfully. "We searched the entire area, but the vehicle seems to have vanished. No one in the neighborhood reported seeing it leave." Brixton frowned, his brow furrowing in frustration. "Damn it. These people are good, I'll give them that. Did you at least get a license plate number?" The other deputy, a grizzled veteran named Jack Redmond, stepped forward. "We did, but it was a fake plate. Traced it back to a rental company downtown. The car was reported stolen earlier this morning." Brixton let out a heavy sigh, rubbing his temples. "Of course it was. All right, what else did you find?" Redmond cleared his throat, his expression growing serious. "Well, sir, we did some digging, and it seems this isn't the first time the Willow Creek HOA has been involved in shady activities. There have been several complaints filed over the years about excessive fines, harassment, and abuse of power, but nothing ever stuck." Brixton's eyes narrowed. "So these aren't just a bunch of wannabe cops then. They're a well-organized group of criminals masquerading as an HOA. Wilkins nodded, her face etched with concern. "It gets worse, Sheriff. Based on the information we gathered, it looks like they've been targeting the more vulnerable homeowners in the neighborhood. The elderly, the disabled, single parents. Hitting them with bogus violations and exorbitant fees to line their own pockets." Brixton felt a wave of anger wash over him, preying on the weak and the defenseless. It was the lowest of the low. "All right, that does it. I want every available unit on this case. We're going to shut down this phony HOA operation and bring these bastards to justice. No one messes with my community and gets away with it." The deputies snapped to attention, the resolve in their leader's voice spurring them into action. Brixton turned and headed back inside, his mind already formulating a plan. These fake HOA officers had made a grave mistake in targeting him and his town. Now they were about to face the full force of the law. Sheriff John Brixton wasted no time mobilizing his department's resources to track down the elusive fake HOA officers. He knew that time was of the essence, as these ruthless criminals were likely already plotting their next move. Gathering his top deputies, Brixton laid out a detailed plan of attack. "All right, listen up. We're going to flood the streets of Willow Creek, and I want every available unit searching for that stolen black SUV. Redmond, I want you to coordinate with dispatch, keep an eye on the CCTV feeds, and alert us the moment you get a hit." The grizzled deputy nodded, already moving to his desk to begin the search. Brixton turned to Wilkins, the younger deputy who had been first on the scene at his house. "Wilkins, I need you to start canvassing the neighborhood. Talk to the residents, see what else you can dig up about this so-called HOA and their shady activities. We need to build a solid case to bring these crooks down." Wilkins straightened her uniform, her eyes shining with determination. "You got it, Sheriff. I'll hit the streets and see what I can uncover." As the deputies sprang into action, Brixton retreated to his office, his mind racing. He knew that these fake HOA officers were likely well-connected and resourceful, and he couldn't afford to let them slip through his fingers. Suddenly, the crackling of the radio on his desk drew his attention. "Sheriff, this is Redmond. We got a hit on the stolen SUV. It was just spotted heading towards the east side of the neighborhood." Brixton snatched up the radio, his heart pounding. "Copy that, Redmond. I'm on my way. Jumping into his patrol car, Brixton sped through the winding streets of Willow Creek, sirens blaring. As he approached the last known location of the SUV, he could see the black vehicle in the distance, weaving erratically through the residential area. Determined to cut them off, Brixton pushed his car to its limits, the tires screeching as he made a sharp turn. Just as the SUV came into view, he saw the 4 fake HOA officers frantically trying to escape. Without hesitation, Brixton slammed on the brakes, blocking the SUV's path. The imposters had nowhere to run. Brixton burst from his vehicle, his sidearm drawn and trained on the suspects. "This is the sheriff's department. Get out of the car with your hands up now." The fake HOA officers had no choice but to comply, their faces etched with fear as they slowly exited the vehicle. Brixton wasted no time, quickly cuffing them and radioing for backup. As the deputies arrived to assist with the arrests, Brixton couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. These criminals had made a grave mistake in thinking they could outmaneuver the seasoned lawmen. Now they were about to face the consequences of their reckless actions. The arrest of the 4 fake HOA officers sent shockwaves through the Willow Creek community. As the news spread, residents who had long been tormented by the group's abusive tactics began to emerge from the shadows, eager to share their harrowing stories. Sheriff John Brixton, flanked by his trusted deputies, held a press conference to address the growing scandal. Cameras flashed and reporters scribbled furiously as he detailed the brazen confrontation at his own home and the subsequent investigation that had uncovered the true nature of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. These individuals were not duly elected representatives of the community, Brixton declared, his voice firm and unwavering. They were a well-organized group of criminals who preyed upon the most vulnerable members of our neighborhood, using the guise of an HOA to extort money and terrorize innocent people. The crowd, which had gathered to hear the sheriff's statement, erupted in a chorus of outrage and disbelief. Brixton raised his hand, silencing the din. "We have reason to believe that this so-called HOA has been operating for years, targeting the elderly, the disabled, and single-parent households with bogus violations and exorbitant fines. They used fear and intimidation to line their own pockets, exploiting the trust and goodwill of this community." As the gravity of the sheriff's words sank in, a sea of faces etched with a mixture of anger and relief emerged from the crowd. One by one, residents stepped forward, sharing their harrowing experiences with the fake HOA officers. An elderly woman, her voice trembling, recounted how the imposters had threatened to place a lion on her home if she didn't pay a hefty fine for a minor landscaping violation. A single mother of 3 fought back tears as she described the harassment and sleepless nights caused by the group's relentless demands for payment. Brixton listened intently, his expression hardening with each new revelation. It was clear that the fake HOA's reign of terror had left deep scars on the Willow Creek community, and he was determined to ensure that justice was served. As the testimonies continued, the sheriff made a solemn vow: "We will not rest until every single one of these criminals is brought to justice. This community has suffered long enough under their oppressive rule, and I promise you that we will do everything in our power to restore the integrity and trust that has been so deeply violated." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, a newfound sense of hope and determination filling the air. Brixton knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he was more resolute than ever to dismantle the corrupt HOA operation and return Willow Creek to its rightful owners, the residents who had endured its tyranny for far too long. With the arrest of the 4 fake HOA officers, Sheriff John Brixton and his team knew that they had only scratched the surface of a much deeper and more complex criminal enterprise. As the investigation deepened, the true scale of the Willow Creek HOA's corruption began to emerge, painting a disturbing picture of greed, intimidation, and abuse of power. Brixton's deputies combed through mountains of financial records, property documents, and witness statements, painstakingly piecing together the web of deceit that had been woven around the unsuspecting residents of Willow Creek. What they uncovered was a far-reaching scheme that stretched far beyond the handful of individuals they had initially apprehended. This wasn't just a small group of con artists, Brixton revealed during a closed-door meeting with his top investigators. "We're looking at a highly organized criminal operation that has been siphoning money and exerting control over this community for years. These people have been exploiting the HOA system to line their own pockets, and they've done it with a level of sophistication that's truly chilling." The deputies exchanged troubled glances, the gravity of their task becoming increasingly clear. Brixton continued, his brow furrowed with determination. "We've got evidence of forged documents, fraudulent elections, and a complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts. These crooks have been using the Willow Creek HOA as a front to systematically bleed this community dry, and they'd gotten away with it for far too long. One of the younger deputies, a rising star named Amy Wilkins, spoke up. "So what's our next move, Sheriff? How do we take down an operation of this scale?" Brixton leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "We start by following the money. I want a full forensic audit of the HOA's finances, and I want to know where every single dollar has been going. We need to cut off their funding and starve this beast of its resources." The deputies nodded, already formulating a plan of attack. Brixton knew that this battle would not be won easily, but he was more determined than ever to reclaim Willow Creek from the clutches of the corrupt HOA. "And keep digging," he added, his voice laced with a sense of urgency. "I want to know every single dirty secret these people have been hiding. We're going to expose their operation and bring them down, piece by piece. No one messes with my community and gets away with it." The deputies sprang into action, the fire in their leader's eyes igniting a renewed sense of purpose. Brixton watched them go, his jaw set with unwavering resolve. This fight was far from over, but he was prepared to go to the ends of the earth to restore justice and peace to the embattled residents of Willow Creek. As the investigation into the Willow Creek HOA's criminal enterprise deepened, Sheriff John Brixton knew that he couldn't simply rely on the efforts of his own department to bring about the necessary changes. The scope of the corruption was too vast, the web of deceit too deeply woven into the fabric of the community. He realized that true, lasting change would require the full support and participation of the residents themselves. Brixton called an emergency town hall meeting, inviting every member of the Willow Creek community to attend. The turnout was overwhelming, as the news of the fake HOA officers' arrests and the depth of their misdeeds had spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. Standing before the packed auditorium, Brixton's voice rang out with a sense of resolve and urgency. "My friends, the time has come for us to take back our community. For too long, we have been held hostage by a group of criminals who have used the Willow Creek Homeowners Association as a tool of oppression and greed." The crowd erupted in a chorus of cheers and applause, the pent-up anger and frustration of years of abuse finally finding an outlet. Brixton raised his hand, silencing the room. "But we cannot do this alone. We need your help, your dedication, and your unwavering commitment to restoring the integrity and trust that has been so deeply violated." He went on to outline his plan, a complete overhaul of the Willow Creek HOA, with newly elected resident-led leadership and a renewed focus on transparency and accountability. The crowd listened with rapt attention, their eyes shining with a renewed sense of hope. As Brixton finished speaking, a lone figure in the audience rose to his feet, his voice ringing out with conviction. "Sheriff Brixton, you can count on us. We've had enough of these crooks and their lies. We're ready to take our neighborhood back, and we'll stand shoulder to shoulder with you every step of the way." The sentiment was echoed by a chorus of impassioned voices, each resident pledging their support and determination to see this fight through to the end. Brixton felt a surge of pride and relief wash over him. He knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but with the unwavering commitment of the Willow Creek community behind him, he was more confident than ever that they would emerge victorious. "Then let's get to work," he proclaimed, his gaze sweeping across the sea of empowered faces before him. "Together, we will dismantle this corrupt HOA and rebuild our community on a foundation of trust, justice, and the unwavering spirit of the people who call Willow Creek home." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, the air thick with a renewed sense of purpose and a shared determination to reclaim their neighborhood from the clutches of the criminal enterprise that had tormented them for far too long. In the weeks that followed the explosive revelations about the Willow Creek HOA's criminal activities, Sheriff John Brixton worked tirelessly alongside the residents to dismantle the corrupt organization and establish a new, transparent governing body that would truly serve the interests of the community. The investigation led by Brixton's team had uncovered a tangled web of deceit and abuse of power that spanned years. Forged documents, rigged elections, and a complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts had all been used to funnel money and exert control over the unsuspecting homeowners. The 4 fake HOA officers who had confronted Brixton on his own doorstep were just the tip of the iceberg. As the probe deepened, a dozen more individuals were arrested, each one facing a litany of charges ranging from fraud and racketeering to impersonation of law enforcement. Throughout the process, the residents of Willow Creek remained steadfast in their support of Brixton and his deputies. Dozens of community members volunteered their time and expertise, assisting in the forensic audit of the HOA's finances and helping to establish the new, democratically elected governing board. The transition was not without its challenges, as the outgoing HOA leadership fought tooth and nail to maintain their grip on power. But with Brixton's unwavering leadership and the unwavering determination of the community, the old guard was ultimately forced to concede defeat. As the dust settled, the newly formed Willow Creek Residents Association, WCRA, emerged, its mission clear: to restore trust, transparency, and the true spirit of community that had been so deeply eroded by the criminal enterprise that had masqueraded as an HOA. Brixton, hailed as a hero by the grateful residents, took immense pride in witnessing the transformation of his beloved neighborhood. The scars of the past would not heal overnight, but he knew that with the WCRA's diligent stewardship and the unwavering commitment of the community, Willow Creek would emerge stronger and more united than ever before. This was never just about taking down a few bad apples, Brixton reflected, addressing the newly elected WCRA board. It was about reclaiming the soul of this community and ensuring that the people, not the corrupt and the greedy, are the ones who decide its future. The WCRA members nodded in solemn agreement, their eyes shining with a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they would work tirelessly to rebuild the trust and integrity that had been so deeply violated, one neighborhood at a time. As Brixton stepped out into the revitalized streets of Willow Creek, he couldn't help but feel a profound sense of satisfaction. The fake HOA officers had made a grave mistake in targeting his community, and they had learned a hard lesson: that the abuse of power, no matter how small the scale, would not be tolerated. Justice had been served, and the people of Willow Creek were now firmly in control of their own destiny.